welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about long distance trips with your electric vehicle. So just about a month ago I took a trip from Prince George, British Columbia to the Pas, Manitoba. And you can see here the sort of logo of the town there, home of the Trappers Festival, tourist paradise. Let you decide, but anyway, you can see here the first thing I did was I plugged in my from and to destination from Prince George to the Pas through Google Maps to get an idea of what the different routes would be to take and how long it is regularly with a gas vehicle. About 1,700 kilometers, about 17 hours of driving, and 3 different time zones. And so you can see sort of the route that it's suggesting that I take. And so what I did next was I noticed here, because I have a Tesla, I looked at all the superchargers that would be along that route. And there were superchargers pretty much most of the way until I got to North Battleford. And after that, I was driving north. Now this station here at Prince Albert did not exist a month ago, so it's brand new. So would have made my trip easier. I could have done the whole thing in a single day. But as it stood, I had to stop at Prince Albert at a hotel where they had a level 2 charger, charge up to 100%, and the next day I did the last stretch. And so this section of highway here, it's interesting. You should always do research for the highways sections that you've never gone on before. And the reason I say that is I had discovered that Highway 9 and Highway 55, there's a Facebook group, and this highway is not maintained in the wintertime. And so important to know those things. So the next tool that I used, and I always use when I go take a long trip with an electric vehicle, most people would use a tool like this, and that's a Better Route Planner. That's the name of the website. They have a mobile app as well. They have a paid service, but the free service is pretty good. And I just, again, punched in where I'm going from, where I'm driving to, and it recommends where you should charge. Now, an important factor of this, you have to configure the car that you're driving. So I plugged in my Tesla Model 3 2020 all-wheel drive, long range, and this gave me recommendations of where to charge. And you can see mostly Superchargers it recommended. And what's interesting is the last section here, again, Prince Albert Supercharger did not exist, but even charging up to 100% on the level 2 charger at the hotel there, you can see here that it was saying in the red here that, and it says up top, no valid plan found, because it thinks I wouldn't have enough charge to do the last part of this. Now, this is where it's good to know your car, but I know that I can travel at least 400 kilometers, if not more, on a single charge with my car. I've done many times. I have lots of other videos where I talk about that. And so the distance here from Prince Albert to the Pas was something like 350, 360 kilometers. And I knew as long as I drive, around the speed limit, I should be okay. And so, in fact, I was able to make that in a single charge just fine. Now, let's say, how would you plan a trip like this? Let's say there was no charger in Prince Albert. And in fact, let me come back here to this map just to kind of show you this last part here. This whole section of the province, there were no superchargers going in northern Saskatchewan and northern Manitoba. So one important tool to use is plugshare.com. And so a tool like PlugShare will show you where all the third-party chargers exist, and a Better Route Planner will tell you which chargers you should stop at for how long to get to your destination. So the difference between the two is pretty obvious. One just shows you a list of all the chargers. The other one, gives you suggestions of how you could use those chargers to get to where you want to and how long it will take. Now, PlugShare is interesting because this is a place where people will document all the places that you can charge. And you can see here on this map, this is Prince Albert here. There were no fast chargers before. And in fact, there were no chargers on the map here when I first was investigating this route to get to my destination, the PA. And actually what I did was I wanted to create backup plans and alternatives for myself. And so what I did was I did some research on the web at all the sort of little towns around, after Prince Albert on the way to where I wanted to go. There's Hudson Bay, there's Barrows, there's Dawson Bay, there's Tisdale and Nipawin and Carrot River and whatnot. And I called around to RV sites and campsites. And I first checked if they had RV plugs, for a recreational vehicle. And if they did, I checked, would you allow an electric vehicle to charge there? And as long as you pay the fee for the site, they would allow it. And so I added a bunch of sites here after verifying that, in fact, they had these plugs and you can charge there. And I said that in the notes for each one of those. And so that brings me to another important point, and that is, after you've kind of taken a look at the route you would take, if you have Tesla, look at the Superchargers because that's going to be your fastest bet. Plan out your route using a better route planner. Take a look at PlugShare, and if there are any, if it's an area that has not many chargers or it's very sketchy, try to see if you can find some emergency backup plans. Add them there, and consider those. And do some research on those sketchy sections of highway that maybe you've never been on, that really thin lines here on the map that indicates it's not really a major highway. And once you've added those, make sure then the next thing I would say is make sure you have all the required adapters that you would need for the trip. I have other videos where I talk about all different kinds of adapters, many videos talking about charging. You can use the NEMA 1450 at some of these campsites, but in these rural areas, most of these RV sites only had 30 amp service, and that requires a special adapter, a TT30P adapter. I have a video in my playlist around that adapter and where you can get it, and that's a very handy adapter to have because pretty much every site that has RV plugins will have at least 30 amp. If they have 50 amp, you want that NEMA 1450. You probably want that anyway for charging at home because it's a pretty standard plug for most EVs in your garage. But being able to charge at RV sites means you can travel in a lot of remote areas. So I created some backup plans for these places in case something went wrong. If maybe the road or the weather conditions or something was really bad and I was losing a lot more range than I thought, then I would go to plan B or something like that. So covering all the bases here. So this is kind of what I did. And so here's the next thing that I did. So if you take a look at this, a better route planner, so it will tell you where you should stop and charge. But one thing you can do is you can edit the plan and you can add in waypoints. You can add in these little intermediate points, and when you do that, it will show you, if I look at this table view here, clicking on this, shows you this little table view and what percentage of charge you will arrive at that spot. And so I added a number of waypoints here, especially on this last section after Prince Albert. So I think this first one was right around Nipawin. So after I leave Prince Albert, about halfway to the PA is Nipawin. So I'm going to have 50% charge there. So once I get to there, now it gets really important because I've got a few roads I can go south to hit my emergency points, but then the point of no return is kind of after the turnoff to Carrot River. Then there's really nothing, and I'm dead in the water if a problem arises. And so I put these intermediate points, Nipawin, Carrot River, even this turnoff to go down to this Highway 9 down here. So I added those into my plan. So if I scroll down here, you can see Nipawin, I should arrive with 50%. At this turnoff at Carrot River, should be 39%. This turnoff here down Highway 9, it should be 5%. And so why do I add these waypoints? I do that and I print it out on a sheet of paper that I put in my car, especially on a new trip that I don't know the area, and that just lets me check the state of charge I have on my electric vehicle versus when I get to that spot. Do they match? Do I have at least, when I get to Nipawin, do I have at least 50% or more charge? If I do, I'm on track, everything's going good. When I hit this Moose Range, this turnoff here by Carrot River, do I have at least 39%? And if you don't, you're going to need to slow down. You're going to, slow your speed, maybe turn off your heating or your AC or whatever, and start hypermiling. That's what they call it in the EV world, so that you can conserve energy so you can make it to your destination. So add those waypoints. That's a trick that you can do. And by the way, if you have a Tesla, you can put those waypoints in to your route plan as well. You can add sections. You don't have to do anything there, but it just shows you when you get to this point, you should have this much charge. And so that's pretty useful. And so let's keep moving on here, just talking about the waypoints. Make sure that you have, like I said, backup plans. If for some reason a section of highway is flooded, there's a fatality or something happens, a forest fire, and you can't get there, again, I created these bailout plans, especially up here where it was a bit more rural and not too many roads and I wasn't too familiar with it, that I could bail south and I could hit other charging points if I had to. So make your backup plans. Make sure that you know what to do if things don't go right. Prepare for surprises that are under your control. What do I mean by that? Well, you should bring a spare tire and a jack. I have a video talking about Modern Spare, which provides a whole kit for Tesla owners. And that's what I always bring with me when I go on long trips. Too many videos out there where people are driving a car and it's a big deal when they get a flat tire, and it just shouldn't be a big deal. So make sure you have equipment for things that could happen like that. You don't have to go crazy, but I mean, a spare tire is pretty important. Prepare for sections where there's no cell phone. I drove this in the wintertime with my F-150, but I drove this southern road. And interestingly enough, once you get into this area here, there's no cell signal. And I almost ran out of gas in the winter. And, from now on, when I drive in these rural areas, get to know where the cell signal is. You can ask, the person who lives in the destination area, hey, what's the cell signal like on the highway, coming to your place? They should be able to tell you. If not, you can get maps that show it. But it's important, because if you break down, you want to be able to communicate. I actually am an avid hiker. If you look in my videos, you can see that. So I would bring my InReach Mini. That's like a satellite communication device, so I can communicate from basically anywhere in case of emergency. So that's something you could bring that might be a little bit overkill. But another one is if your 12-volt battery were to die. Now, it can happen. With EVs, it's possible. They only have a certain lifespan. And let's just say on that long drive, it takes a lot of juice out of your battery. And finally, it's that day when your battery's going to die. Bring a boosting device. They're lithium-ion batteries with jumper cables you can get on Amazon. I'll probably link in the description of this video one that I bring with me. I put it in the frunk of my Model 3. And there's a whole process of how you can get to it in case of everything dying. But typically what happens if your 12-volt battery dies, probably it's not completely dead, it's just discharged. If you give it a boost with something like that booster unit, you can probably get to your next destination. It's just a signal that, your battery's on life support, so it may not last too much longer. By the way, if you have a Tesla Model 3 or Model Y, you can get an easy replacement battery from Costco. It has the code 51R on it. And I posted something like that on my Instagram page showing the picture of it. Is about $135. The reason I mention that is you may have a very difficult time getting the original Tesla OEM 12-volt battery, depending if you're in a remote area like this. And instead of waiting days and getting towed and all that, maybe you can get to a Costco and get that battery. So it is compatible with the Tesla Model 3. A number of people online have used it. So 51R. So anyway, carrying equipment for things that can fail like that. Another thing is get to know how your vehicle should be towed. Electric vehicles should not be towed like gas vehicles because they have the regenerative braking, etc. And you can't just disengage the motors and all that. They must be towed on a flat deck. If you don't do it, most of the OEM manufacturers will void your warranty, and you'll probably wreck the car, and you might even start a fire. So make sure you know how to tow it. Read the documentation. Get used to that just in case of emergency. Air pressure. Check the pressure on your tires when you do this. Also, I like to bring a small little air compressor, because as you drive a long distance and your tires heat up and cool down and all that, as you drive they heat up and as you stop they cool down, you can lose air out of your tires, and it's going to create better efficiency if you keep your tires up to about 42 psi. And so I always bring it. What if you have a slow leak and you don't know it until this trip? Just having that air compressor, that's just another thing that you can do to make sure you have a great trip. And of course, make sure your washer fluid is topped up. All right, what else? Know how to use the dash cam on your vehicle. All Teslas come with the Sentry Mode dash cam feature. Know how to use it. If you see something really cool, or if you get into an accident, you know how to capture that footage. So know how to use that dash cam. Know how to use voice commands. When you're going on a long trip like this, and this is just a convenience thing, if you want to be able to play a song, or you can't remember how to turn on the windshield wipers or something, you can just push that right button on the steering wheel, voice command, it'll prompt, and you can say, turn on windshield wipers, or play Yummy by Justin Bieber, if that's your song. But use those voice commands. They're really convenient on a long trip. You don't have to fiddle with the screen or anything like that. Pretty much every command, everything that you can do with the car, pretty much you can use a voice command for. And if you don't know what it is, you can try it out on your long trip and find out, how do I open? You can say, open glove box. You don't have to find the button. It'll open the glove box for you. It's very convenient, less distracting. All right, voice commands. I said check the tire pressure. Pre-download any audiobooks, music, etc. for long trips. Like I said, large sections of road may not have cell service, so it's nice to have all of that content. We downloaded, I forget what it's called, but a very long audiobook, and it was really nice to be able to listen to it in those areas where there's no cell service. All right, what else? Know where you're going to charge when you get to your destination. It seems obvious, but getting from Prince Albert to the PA, there was one charger level 2 in the PA advertised on PlugShare. I'll show you here. Actually, it's not even shown there anymore, funny enough. It's removed. But there was one there. It's at a car dealership. I think it was Chrysler or GM, I'm not sure which one. And when I called, they said, yeah, you can't charge here. So I don't know why it was on the map, but if I had planned for that, and that's another thing, any really important chargers, you might want to see if there's a recent comment or somebody who charged recently to make sure it's functioning, it's proper. And if it's really important, call and make sure that it's still available. So I ended up finding someone through Facebook group on the Manitoba Tesla group, or Manitoba EV group, and they graciously allowed me to charge at their level 2 charger in town, which is really great. So make sure you plan it out. There are a bunch of campsites around the area that I could have plugged in for RVs, but it was out of town and would have been a bit more of a hassle, so that was my backup plan. So know where you're going to charge at your destination. Make sure you're there for long enough to charge back up to the rate you need. I had to get to 100% to make it back to Prince Albert. So, if I wasn't going to be there long enough, that could have been a problem. So make sure you plan all that out. And what else is there to say? And that's pretty much it. So I hope this video has been useful for you. Let's go through some of the stats now for this trip. Okay. So I ended up over 2 days. So it took me, I think I mentioned 16 hours to get to Prince Albert. But overall, the charge time was about 3 hours to get all the way from Prince George to the PA, 3 hours of charging. It was 1,744 kilometers. Cost me $99 to drive, 1,744 kilometers. Pretty good. Driving time was 22 hours. And that's just because, I guess it's driving time, traffic, whatever. I did drive pretty quickly on Highway 16 anyway. So what else is there to say? So these are all the stats for going one way, and it was pretty similar coming on the way back. So just looking at my lifetime map here, this is everywhere I've driven in 2.5 years. You can see I've been to Prince Rupert, I've been up to Dawson Creek, down to Vancouver a lot of times, been to Kamloops. I've even been down here to Tumbler Ridge, up to Mackenzie, even to Fort St. James, and to Calgary, and way over here to the PA. When I went to the PA, I went this upper route through Prince Albert, Nipawin, and when I came back, we went down to Saskatoon, just because I knew that if I charged for a lot longer at Prince Albert, I could have done this section, but I had just enough charge to get to Saskatoon, and then it was just supercharging the rest of the way. So I made that decision. So that's a lifetime map. Let's take a look at that trip from Prince George to the PA. So you can see I charged in Jasper, I charged at McBride, and I could have made it to Jasper in a single charge, but I didn't want to push my limits, so I drove a little bit over the speed limit. Charged in McBride, charged in Jasper, Edson, Vegreville, North Battleford, Prince Albert. This is where I had the level 2 at the hotel overnight, and then with 100% charge, we went down this tote road, Highway 55, all the way to the PA, and at least 100 kilometers, if not more, of this road, this last section, was gravel. I think once you get to the border of Manitoba, it's paved the rest of the way. But in the last easterly section of Saskatchewan, it's like quite a bit of gravel. And the road that's paved going towards Nipawin, it's terrible. It's paved, but it's not really paved. There's potholes filled in with gravel, and you got to swerve all over the place, even though it's 100-kilometer-an-hour highway. It's in terrible shape. Anyway, so that's the route that I took. What else can I say? Coming on the way back, like I said, from Prince Albert, instead of jumping over to North Battleford, I went down to Saskatoon and just supercharged the rest of the way. All right, what else is there to look at here? So this is where you can see in my single charge, I went from Prince Albert to the PA. These are all those little communities. You can call ahead, and like I said, this is where you add those extra sites on PlugShare for emergency backup. But really, this last section here, this is just wilderness. There is nowhere to charge, this last area here. It's your point of no return. All right, and what else is there to talk about here? I think that's pretty much it. So hopefully that was helpful to you. I've covered a number of points. Make sure you have all the adapters. Make sure you have all the equipment and plans in case something comes up unexpected. And on top of that, make sure you have a great time. This is a really relaxing trip. We enjoyed listening to our audiobooks, and it's a very comfortable ride in the Model 3. Anyways, have a great
I love talking on the phone. But hey, I just can't wait to have you home. Oh, I'm alright for now, but I need you around. Hey, So hey, why should we wait another night? Oh, I'm alright for now, but I need you around. I'm gonna love you till the end of time, because a love like ours is hard to find. I'm gonna love you till the end of time, because a love like ours is hard to find. Yeah, a love like ours is hard to find. Why does every Friday night always end the same?